since we're on the subject now, so do you guys remember when Kanye West read out this Australian painter's speech? And he was kind of spot on when he did it. When he read it out. About what's going on today.
In his death, he will start World War III. One of his soldiers asked how.
I'll rewind it.
Even in his death, he will start World War III. One of his soldiers asked how. Hitler replied, "The day mankind finds out what I was trying to defend this nation from, then that's the day World War III will start. For on that day, mankind will learn that I was trying to save my nation from the Freemasons, the Illuminati, the Jews. For if Americans win the war, then they will conquer the world and forever be a slave to the Jews. And they will try to conquer God." That's accurate. That's exactly what happened.
Not just what happened. It's down to a damn T of what's going on right now. And I say that to say, if you guys notice, right? Obama just said that, aliens are real. They're just not in Area 51. I'm going to play that video here now, right? It says that aliens are real. They're just not in Area 51. And if they are, I think they hid them from, the president. It might be a conspiracy that they hid them from the president. Yeah, Sure, Obama. Sure. See, the thing is, I already know that they've shown.
We're going to talk aliens this hour because of comments made by Barack Obama. The former US president said this.
Are aliens real?
They're real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in, what is it?
Area 51?
Area 51. There's no underground facility unless there's this enormous conspiracy and they hid it from the President of the United States.
And it's not just former President Obama. Current President Donald Trump, a couple of years ago, said this.
I've met with pilots. Sir, there was something there that was round in form and going like 4 times faster than my super jet fighter plane. And I look at these guys, and they really mean it.
Yeah.
And am I a believer? No, I can't say I am.
Former US President Barack Obama has now clarified that the chances Earth has been visited by aliens is low after the comments with which we played you just a moment ago that he made about extraterrestrial species catching attention online. He said, and you heard it there, they're real, but I haven't seen them, telling Brian Tyler Cohen, the podcast host, during an interview published on Saturday. He since said his comments were made in line with the spirit of the speed round of questions, adding that statistically the chances are that life is out there, but he saw no evidence while he was president. His initial comments were made during a quick-fire lightning round of questions where he was asked, are aliens real? He's now said, since it's gotten attention, let me clarify, statistically the universe is so vast that the odds are good that there's life out there. But the distances between solar systems are so great that the chances we've been visited by aliens is low. And I saw no evidence during my presidency that extraterrestrials have made contact with us, really. Few things to talk about this hour. Why? I mean, US presidents have constantly, in interviews, they sort of shy away. Barack Obama had a sort of glint in his eye when he was talking about this. They sort of like, I think, winding people up to an extent. Let's bring into the conversation. Always enjoy speaking with Nick Pope, who's the former Ministry of Defence official. He ran the MOD's division investigating UFO sightings in the 1990s. Starting with your previous work, Nick Pope, thank you for joining us. You never found any in the 1990s?
Sadly, no, but we did certainly have some interesting cases. Most of these things were misidentifications, a few hoaxes, aircraft lights, weather balloons, satellites, that sort of thing. But around 5% defied conventional explanation. And we often saw, for example, pilots encountering these things simultaneously tracked on radar, speeds, maneuvers and acceleration way beyond the cutting edge of our own aerospace tech. So we didn't rule out the extraterrestrial hypothesis for some of this. And in a sense, we couldn't.
It's interesting you said about pilots there. I don't know if you heard the clip of Donald Trump talking about it, where he was citing people who obviously see vastly different sort of landscapes and things than I do and most people do, and that they were seeing things they struggled to explain. And so when it's anecdotal experience like that from very trustworthy people, it's difficult to have a sort of argument with, isn't it?
It very much so, particularly when it's corroborated not just by radar evidence, but nowadays by forward-looking infrared cameras that are mounted on some of these military jets that have been involved in these encounters, and indeed satellite data, although most of that, in fact, all of that, I believe, is still classified. But I know that a number of pilots have gone in to brief President Trump about this. And this is just part of a wider engagement with the US government is having on this subject at the moment. Everything from hearings in Congress to UFO provisions in the annual defense bill.
Talk us through Area 51, because this is obviously much spoken about. It's this area in Nevada, isn't it, where it's said that it's sort of top secret and that's where the aliens are kept. What is the sort of conspiracy or the thoughts behind that among some?
Well, Area 51 absolutely exists, 100%. It's where the United States developed and flew some of the iconic aerospace platforms, the SR-71 Blackbird, the U-2 spy plane, more recently stealth fighters, stealth bombers, and nowadays things you won't see for 20 years. Conspiracy theorists say it goes further than that, and there's a sort of, story within a story, so to speak, and that this is where crashed UFOs from places like Roswell, where it's alleged something came down in 47, are being reverse engineered as scientists and engineers try and figure out what these things are and whether we can build them ourselves. I don't know whether that's true or not, but it's a long-held belief in many parts of the community.
If we focus on President Obama's comments, or the initial comments, or even what he said subsequently, what do you make of it, what he's had to say?
It was really interesting. And in fact, the follow-up comment was much more interesting, I thought, than the original. The original, of course, as you played, the question was, are they real? And he said, they're real. And that, of course, started a sort of media firestorm. Now, presidents do these sorts of interviews all the time, quick-fire questions. They're used to fielding inquiries from heavy-hitting A-listers when it comes to broadcasting. So it was very unusual, I thought, that a former two-term president of the United States felt the need to circle back on something he said on a YouTube podcast and say, oh, by the way, when I said they're real, all I was really meaning was that with the vastness of the universe, we're probably not alone. And that kind of got me a little bit suspicious. It's almost like he knew or was told that he'd said too much and hey, come on, walk this back.
You wonder if someone said something to him and said, come on, you know the drill. Maybe clarify a little bit.
Well, I think every
that's very obvious. That part is very obvious that someone said something to him. The other part to that is that Trump said, fuck it, we're going to just release the files now. He said, oh, Obama shouldn't have said that. I think he made a great mistake. I think we're just going to go ahead and release the files. Once he went ahead and did that, I said, okay, this is telling me right now that this is the last card. Did this white man say things we won't see in the next 20 years? Yes. Very much so. Because that's the thing. We're pretty much on the arrival of the reset right now within this next year or two. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to go to Antarctica this evening with you guys. Because there was this thing called Project let's just say Operation High Jump back in the day. 1960s, I believe, 1964, I believe was when it happened. I'll play a video on it here in a second. And pretty much what happened was Admiral Byrd, and a few others. This wasn't the first time, of course, it happened, and it would be one of multiple different teams that went to Antarctica that ended up going missing because of what they actually saw and what they actually ran into. Now, Admiral Byrd, fortunately, back in the 1960s, he was able to come back and fortunately report on what he saw. He just shouldn't have had to. It was a bad idea that he reported on what he saw. And I'm going to play here on what happened to Admiral Byrd and what he actually saw. Ask him to show a picture here real quick also of what he saw, because I can't show you the History Channel version of it, but Crystal City. They said this pretty much is a picture of what this guy saw here when he flew over the other side of the ice in Antarctica. He saw this ancient city here. Now, what was inside it is a whole nother thing.
Operation High Jump commenced in August 1946. It was the largest, most heavily armed naval task force ever sent to Antarctica. Leading the mission was Admiral Richard E. Byrd, one of the most famous naval officers in history. The official purpose for...
Now, disclaimer. For some reason, when I stream, it disables my video, so I can't necessarily pause and I can't necessarily go back and forth. I can't skip over certain things. Like when he does his placement ads, I can't skip over that. For some strange reason, my shit gets disabled. So when he does that, just bear with it.
The expedition was scientific research and military training. But that was just a cover story. Operation High Jump had other goals. One was to extend American sovereignty over Antarctica, something that was denied many times by the US government. Another was to locate and destroy a secret Nazi base and capture the Nazis' new secret weapon, the flying saucer. UFOs were seen all over the area, suspected to be Nazi test flights. Admiral Byrd was sent to find out.
Did they find flying saucers?
Oh, they found a lot more than that.
So I'm going to play something on it here in a second, but do you guys remember when I showed you guys the Antarctica Stargate? And we were reading up on how Hitler actually was trying to gain access to the technology. He had found the ancient technology over in Antarctica before the U.S. did. And pretty much the U.S. actually invaded Hitler in the beginning and Osama bin Laden. The only reason they invaded over there was because of the ancient alien technology that they found. It was never about oil or even the race or anything like that. Let's just say Hitler with the Jews and everything like that. It wasn't nothing to do with that. It was solely because Hitler had found that ancient Stargate in Antarctica. It was really because of that. The Nazis had literally found the ancient alien technology, and the U.S. invaded and said, hey, we cannot let him have his hands on that. We read up on that. I showed you guys. But we're going to look at a video again here to remind you guys once again that this is what this really is all about. When it comes down to the Epstein files and all this other shit, I told y'all before, the main thing that they are keeping away from y'all is the fact that they don't want to show you guys that they are reptilians. That is one of the main things that they don't want to be let out inside them Epstein files, among other things. They don't want you guys to really know about where the ancient technology is with Antarctica. They don't want you guys to really know what the files even entail as far as all the data is concerned with alien technology. Because when it comes down to it, it's remember the movie Predator versus Alien? Have you ever put two and two together and thought about how the Predator represents the old ancient Anunnaki, Enki, and Enlil, especially with Anunnaki more so representing how they said black people, the dreads, the reptilians being the xenomorphs with the tails. You ever put two and two together thinking about that? That's pretty much the movies playing in our faces, telling you how this war actually is going on between, heaven and earth, as you would say, over mankind. The war over the minds of mankind is being waged between the Anunnaki and the Draconian reptilians, pretty much. That's really what this, and it, like I said, sounds far-fetched, but with everything that we are awakening to now, I think it's safe to say that that's really what we're, really the bigger piece of the puzzle. It's not about left and right, Democrat, Republican. At the end of the day, it is a war going on over our minds.
In December 1938, aware that he was on the brink of war, Hitler dedicated considerable resources to searching for mysterious ancient artifacts said to have incredible power. One of these expeditions launched on December 17, 1938. The SS Schwabenland was sent on a secret mission to Antarctica. On board were scientists and engineers, but also members of the Thule Society, a German occultist group. The Thule Society believed that a highly advanced race of human-like beings called Aryans existed somewhere deep inside the Earth, and the entrance to their world was at the South Pole. The classified mission of the SS Schwabenland was to find a location for a secret underground base and make contact with the Aryans living in the Hollow Earth. And once contact was made, negotiate for access to their technology. The ship reached the Antarctic coast a month later. For the next 3 weeks, they mapped hundreds of thousands of square miles of the continent. About 150 miles inland, aerial reconnaissance found what is described as an Arctic oasis, an area about 300 square miles that was free of ice, filled with warm water, and even contained plant life. In the ocean beneath the oasis was a geothermal vent that kept the area relatively warm. This was the ideal place for a base, especially for U-boats. This is where the Nazis would establish the infamous underground facility known as Base 211. Over the course of World War II, Base 211 became a massive complex, as large as a small city. Initially, it was designed as an offensive structure, where U-boats and missiles could be deployed. But as the tide of war turned against the Axis powers, it became clear that the base would be an ideal way to escape. In the final months of the war, huge amounts of equipment, supplies, and personnel were transported to Antarctica. At the same time, thousands of Nazis escaped justice and were smuggled to South America, with most of them hiding in Argentina. One of the infamous German officers to disappear was Hans Kammler. Kammler was in charge of Hitler's secret weapons program. Kammler's engineers had created a prototype long-distance supply plane with a range of over 4,000 miles called the Ju-390. Only 2 of these were made. One of them belonged to Kammler. And as of April 1945, neither Kammler nor his plane have ever been found. And just a few months later, thousands of UFO sightings were reported all over South America. The American government feared that Kammler and his scientists had escaped to Antarctica, where they were continuing their work, operating out of a secret military base hidden deep underground. But these were just rumors. There was only one way to find out. Go to Antarctica. Okay, before we talk about what Admiral Byrd saw in Antarctica...
No, come on, just get to the weird stuff.
I will, but it's important that you understand what kind of man Richard Byrd was. He was not some pseudoscience conspiracy theorist kook. He was a legitimate badass. Here are the bullet points. Richard Byrd reached the rank of Rear Admiral by the age of 41, the youngest admiral in Navy history. Now that by itself is impressive, but how about this? He was a recipient of the Medal of Honor, the Navy Cross, the Flying Cross, and the Silver Life-Saving Medal. In all, he received 22 citations and commendations, including 9 for bravery and 2 for extraordinary heroism. He was, to this day, one of the most highly decorated officers in the history of the Navy. Now, his resume goes on, but I think you get the point. If Admiral Byrd says he wants to be the first man to fly over the North Pole, he does it. And if the United States sends a major expedition to the South Pole to conduct a top-secret mission, well, there's no more qualified person on the face of the earth to lead it than Admiral Richard E. Byrd. Operation High Jump commenced in August 1946. The official purpose of the mission was to train personnel and test equipment in cold temperatures, to explore Arctic geology, study the weather, and develop
Interesting. 1946, 2046.
techniques for establishing air bases in frigid climates. Admiral Byrd led a Navy task force of almost 5,000 men aboard 13 ships, including a brand new state-of-the-art aircraft carrier loaded with dozens of planes, bombers, and helicopters. This task force was armed to the teeth. There were 2 destroyers, tankers, supply ships, icebreakers, 2 heavily armed seaplanes, and an attack submarine, all fully stocked with the best weapons in the entire Navy.
That's a lot of firepower for training exercises and studying the weather.
Right? That mission was the cover story. No personnel training or equipment testing ever took place. No practice maneuvers, no military exercises, no scientific study of any kind was ever done. According to eyewitness testimony, declassified records, and Byrd's own journal, Operation High Jump had other purposes. One goal was to extend American sovereignty over the Antarctic continent, something that was denied many times publicly by the U.S. government.
Naturally.
The other goal was to locate and destroy the secret Nazi military complex known as Base 211, and to capture any flying saucers they could. The Armada arrived on January 15th and immediately started building a base called Little America. But then the Operation High Jump story takes a turn. Originally meant to be a 6 to 8 month mission, after just 40 days, the base is evacuated and the task force withdraws. This massive, expensive, and important mission is suddenly terminated. So, what happened? And this is where Admiral Byrd, a legend in his own time, becomes a legend for all time. The Navy task force retreated to Chile, and as soon as they made port, rumors spread about strange findings and disasters that forced the mission to be cut short. Admiral Byrd himself spoke to the media, and rather than deny the stories, he expressed deep concern about the real possibilities of devastating aerial attacks on the U.S.
This doesn't sound like a guy on a scientific mission.
It sure doesn't. Byrd warned that it was imperative for the United States to take immediate defensive measures against hostile forces in the Arctic and Antarctic. The Admiral went on to say that he wasn't trying to alarm anyone.
Too late.
But the cruel reality is that in case of a new war, the United States could be attacked by flying objects that had the ability to move from pole to pole at incredible speeds. Admiral Byrd reiterated this in a few different statements. He warned that there was a new enemy that could attack any country at any time, anywhere, no matter the distance. When Admiral Byrd got back to Washington, he was immediately debriefed. And though he had just spent 2 weeks making statements in the press, after a lengthy interrogation, Admiral Byrd never uttered another word about Operation High Jump.
Now, speaking of which, I actually happen to have found that interview that Mr. Byrd had done back in the 1940s.
It's time for the Longines Chronoscope, a television journal of the important issues of the hour, brought to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. A presentation of the Longines Whitnor Watch Company, maker of Longines, the world's most honored watch, and Whitnor, distinguished companion to the world-honored Longines. Good evening, this is Frank Knight. May I introduce our co-editors for this edition of the Longines Chronoscope? Larry Lasser, CBS News correspondent, and Kenneth Crawford, National Affairs Editor of Newsweek magazine. Our very distinguished guest for this evening is Admiral Richard E. Byrd.
The North Pole used to be a no man's land, but these are the days when, by buying a ticket on a commercial airliner, you can fly across the North Pole and drink a cocktail at the same time. You know, only 60 or more years ago, about 35 years ago, our guest tonight found out whether there was any land north of the North American continent. He made that first discovery flight, and I must say that Admiral Byrd, our guest tonight, is not only our greatest living explorer, but he's been an inspiration to countless Americans. Admiral Byrd, you've been to both the North Pole and the South Pole. Is there any unexplored land left on this earth that might appeal to adventurous young Americans?
Yes, there is. And not up around the North Pole, because it's getting crowded up there now, because they find out it's really usable, not only to live in, but militarily. But strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being. And that's beyond the pole on the other side of the South Pole from Middle America. And I think it's quite astonishing that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
That's a tremendous
So
challenge.
there's a lot of adventure left down at the bottom of the world.
Well,
Admiral, do you hope to see that?
I do.
Well, Admiral,
Yeah.
would you say that since you've been to both the extremities of Earth, are these expeditions to such far-off places, are they getting easier because of modern techniques, or is danger still close at hand?
Well, it's a little risky, but nothing like it used to be with the old slow planes and the small cruising radius where we had to put down bases. We replaced the dog teams, and of course that was a big improvement. But now the planes go much faster and they are safer, and they have a much bigger cruising radius. You haven't got the danger of a terribly heavy load.
Admiral, an expedition to which I believe you're the advisor is now en route. What is that expedition doing?
Well, that's the icebreaker Atka, and it's a reconnaissance expedition. It's going down to the South Pole area to make certain observations and to look for some bases. They will be back in April, and they will report back, and upon the information we get from that undertaking, we will base the bigger expedition that's to follow.
Is that very definitely planned, or is that...
That is being planned right now. So I'm willing to say to you that there will be a number of expeditions that will follow, I think, year after year, at the bottom of the world, because the government has really become interested.
Well, Admiral Byrd, I can understand, I think everybody can, the interest in the North Pole because it's so near our greatest challenger, Soviet Russia. But why this interest in the bottom of the world? Nobody living down there, is there?
No, it's pretty cold. There's only one permanent resident, that's the emperor penguin. The little ones live further north. I tell you one reason they're interested. It's by far the most valuable, important place left in the world for science. That's why the scientific groups all over the nation are really interested. But more important than that, it has to do with the future of the nation, those to come after us, or even during your lifetime. Because it happens to be an untouched reservoir of natural resources. And, you know, as the world shrinks with an ever-increasing acceleration, far-flung places, once useless, like we thought the North Pole was, and no man's land, become very useful. The bottom of the world will be important, not only to us, but to our allies.
I was going to ask you, does it have military importance?
It has some, and as the world shrinks, it will continue to shrink with an ever-increasing acceleration, thus bringing these places closer. And in the future, I can see a time when it will be very, very important strategically.
Well, has the development of air power increased the strategic importance of places like the
very much
Parma
so.
Peninsula, was it?
Very much so. Even now, if anything happened and we lost the Panama Canal, we would have to control the islands just north of Antarctica, which are part of Antarctica, and between there and Cape Horn.
I've heard it said that there are 7 continents in the world, and one of them has never been seen by a woman, and that's Antarctica. Is that actually true?
Well, if the Parma Peninsula is an island, As far as I know, that's true. No woman's ever stepped foot upon the Antarctic continent, and it's the most peaceful place in the world.
Well, I'm sure that won't last very long. I understand that now that you're working with the Arnold Bread Company in charge of frozen foods. Now, is there any future for frozen foods down these frozen extremities?
Well, I think the human race can be helped by that. This was thought out by Dean Arnold, who's, in my opinion, a great humanitarian. He learned that we went down there after 4 or 5 years and finished a meal that we had left there on the table when we had evacuated Little America. Everything was perfect, including the bread. So he got the idea of this frozen bread, and already he sent some to Europe, and it worked very well over there for some of the starving people. So you can store it down in the Antarctic and against the lean years, and you wouldn't have any people in the world really starving if you did that.
Yes, in the event of an atomic war.
You stay there forever.
Admiral, you speak of the resources of Antarctica. What are they? What are the natural resources there?
Well, we've found enough of coal within 180 miles of the South Pole in a great ridge of mountains. It's not covered with snow, enough to supply the whole world for quite a while.
Well,
that's the coal. Now, there's evidence of many other minerals. We are pretty sure there's oil. Now, that coal shows the bottom of the world. Now, by far the coldest spot in the world. Where that coal is gets 100 below zero in the winter.
Well,
it was once tropical. So we think there's oil there, and there's evidence, probably uranium there.
is it any secret? Is there uranium there? That would be the only thing that would be practical to actually go after, I suppose. Everything else would be economically unfeasible, wouldn't it?
Well, as we recklessly expend our resources, the time will come when we'll have to go after that stuff down there. Well, you know, I avoided what you said about uranium. I'm not sure about that. I don't want to have the world fight over the Antarctica.
And Robert, is there a competition among other nations to try to get information about Antarctica and possibly to secure some of these resources?
Well, yes. There are now 7 nations very much interested. Russia is interested tremendously. That I'm sure of. Australia has an expedition down there. The Argentine, the Chile, New Zealand, Britain, and so on. Now, you can understand those people down there being interested because they live down there. The New Zealanders, the Argentinians, the Chileans, and Australians. And so we don't do much about claiming anything.
Admiral, you make it sound a little crowded. Are there that many expeditions now there or en route there?
Well, you know, as I said, it's the most peaceful place in the world, but I don't think it will be for long because of this intense interest on the part of other nations and this nation.
Well, Admiral Byrd, are private expeditions a thing of the past? Is expedition and exploration, making expedition and exploration now purely a government function because of the tremendous cost
No, I
and
don't think
organization?
so. I think down south, it may be more or less a thing of the past, but not other expeditions that go. There's a lot of them go north now.
This latest expedition now on the way is a government expedition, I take it.
Yes, that's the government.
However, may I ask you, is there a great difference between the top of the world and the bottom of the world?
There is. Now, the North Pole is the center of an ocean 10,000 feet deep. The South Pole, the center of a plateau, 10,000 feet high. The North Polar Sea is surrounded by continents that are slightly frozen. The Antarctic continent is surrounded by a belt of ice, frozen seas of at least 1,200 miles thick. Now, the south is a plateau. It gets, in some places, 14,000 feet up. I've been over areas about 13,000, and it's a little bit chilly up there. So there's that big difference between the top and bottom of the world. The North really isn't very cold up there on the Arctic Ocean.
Not compared to the South. Admiral Byrd, we often hear it said that our young Americans now aren't as hardy as their forefathers. Do you think that Americans do measure up to the standards, the physical standards and morale standards of the past?
I do. I don't believe that. I think they're just as hardy.
Well, what would you say was the most valuable factor on an expedition? Is it morale, or physical courage, or is it sheer equipment?
Well, I've always thought that loyalty was by far the most important trait. The British told me that when I first went down in 28, that I couldn't possibly get through the winter night without a mutiny if I took more than 20 men. But to serve science, I had to take 42 men. Then I took 56 the next time, and so on. So, and I did find that loyalty was the most important thing during the winter night when it's very hard on your nerves. I think that's trait.
Well, that's a very valuable characteristic at any time. Well, thank you very much, Admiral Byrd. It's been a great pleasure to have you here tonight.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Yeah.
The opinions expressed on the Longines Chronicles.
So, as you guys heard, pretty much he wasn't able to tell everything he saw, but he was able to tell a great deal as far as, like I said, the Crystal City, and there is other life over there. He just wasn't able to say what the life was. You know what I mean? So let's go back into Operation High Jump. And
the mission was immediately classified top secret, and any sailor who spoke about the mission would be arrested and imprisoned. The Navy then published a brief summary of the mission's achievements and admitted some sailors were killed, but they didn't say how many. And officially, all the deaths were accidents, and the bodies were buried there, not brought home. During one of his flights, Admiral Byrd was missing for 3 hours in an episode of lost time, but that was officially blamed on radio failure. The official reason for terminating the mission early was poor weather conditions, and that was that. However, you know how Admiral Byrd was missing for 3 hours and experienced lost time?
Yeah.
Well, Byrd was meticulous at documenting everything, but when he returned to the States, his journals were confiscated and classified. But the government didn't get everything. He had a secret diary that he gave to his son right before he died. And if any of what he claims to have seen is true, well, it changes everything. According to Admiral Byrd's diary, he fuels up for a flight early in the morning. The weather is clear, and mechanically, the plane checks out. At 8:15, at an altitude of 2,300 feet, he checks in.
08:15 hours. Radio check with base camp. Situation normal.
At 10 after 9, he notices a color pattern in the snow. Nothing extreme, but he circles the area to get a closer look. He makes visual contact with camp and radios in his findings. Then, his instruments start to act strange. He writes that both his compasses are gyrating so much that he can't even use them. So he uses the sun to navigate and maintains a visual of camp. He reports that his controls are feeling sluggish. He's concerned about the wings icing up. There's a little ice, but no indication of a problem, so he continues flying toward what he perceives as a mountain range.
09:49 hours. 29 minutes elapsed flight time from the first sighting of the mountains. It is no illusion. They are mountains and consisting of a small range that I have never seen before.
He crosses the mountain range and descends toward what he describes as a green valley with a small river running through it.
There should be no green valley below. Something is definitely wrong and abnormal here. We should be over ice and snow. To the port side are great forests growing on the mountain slopes. Our navigation instruments are still spinning. The gyroscope is oscillating back and forth.
He drops down a bit and circles back for a closer look. He reports the green as being moss or tight grass. The light seems different here. He can see the ground easily, but he can no longer see the sun. Now, this starts to worry him because he's using the sun to navigate, but he gets distracted by something he didn't expect. On the green valley below, a large animal is grazing.
It appears to be an elephant. No, it looks more like a mammoth. This is incredible, yet there it is. Decrease altitude to 1,000 feet and take binoculars to better examine the animal. It is confirmed. It is definitely a mammoth-like animal. Report this to base camp.
Admiral Byrd flies over green pastures that stretch for miles, and he's so amazed by what he's seeing, it takes him almost 30 minutes to realize it's not cold anymore. Frost on his forward window is gone. Same with the bits of ice that were on the wings. He removes his gloves. The window of the canopy is warm to the touch. He records an external air temperature of 74 degrees Fahrenheit. His instruments are now back online, but his radio is out. And remember, in the official report, Admiral Byrd was out of radio contact for 3 hours. So he flies for another hour over what looks to be a countryside or a pasture. On the horizon, he sees the impossible, a large, shining city. The plane shudders. Admiral Byrd grabs the controls, but they're not responding. He notices the plane feels light and buoyant. Then, on both sides of the plane, strange aircraft are rapidly closing in. They're disc-shaped and seem to be radiating light, and somehow they're running completely silent. Now, thinking this is now a really good time to head back, Admiral Byrd tries the controls again. No luck. The plane's engine suddenly cuts out, but somehow continues flying, controlled by some unseen force. The craft are right up alongside his plane now, close enough that Admiral Byrd can see markings. In that instant, his wonder turns to terror. The markings are swastikas. According to documents leaked in 1991, things back at Camp Little America take a strange turn. Just 2 days after arriving, bright lights were seen on the horizon. The sailors thought it was another ship, but they were below the Antarctic Circle in uncharted waters. The lights then ascended at a 45-degree angle into the sky very quickly.
Now keep a note, they crossed over the South Pole.
They tried to make radar contact, but were out of range. 3 hours later, 5 more lights appeared in the sky and began flying directly toward the ships. Anti-aircraft guns and 20-millimeter cannons were fired but had no effect. A radio operator stationed on the USS Brownson gave testimony of how strange craft suddenly appeared from the ocean. And this is corroborated by Lieutenant John Sayerson, who said objects shot vertically out of the water at tremendous speeds. One object flew between the masts of his ship with such force that the radio antenna oscillated back and forth from the turbulence. An aircraft from the USS Currituck took to the sky but was immediately struck by a beam of energy and destroyed. About 10 miles away, the torpedo boat USS Maddox burst into flames and began to sink. According to the report, this was the first attack of several that would occur over the next few weeks. February 26 would be the last engagement with the unknown craft. The Navy task force ordered retreat and left the area, a full 6 months before their mission was supposed to end. Although Lieutenant Sayerson couldn't identify the lights, he wondered if they were what he called German wonder weapons, being operated by survivors of the recently defeated Third Reich, operating out of a secret base under Antarctica. His testimony has fueled speculation that still exists, and to this day, investigators are trying to determine what really happened during Operation High Jump. Admiral Byrd's radio, which hadn't been working for at least an hour, suddenly comes back to life. Though the signal was distorted, a voice starts speaking English with a slightly German accent.
Welcome, Admiral, to our domain. We shall land you in exactly 7 minutes. Relax, Admiral, you are in good hands.
The plane gently lands itself, and Admiral Byrd is met by several men, all tall with blonde hair.
Aryans?
Sounds like it. Byrd joins the strangers on a platform that levitates and rushes them toward the city at great speed. He's directed to an elevator that takes him quickly and silently deep underground. He is to have an audience with the Master. Admiral Byrd is led into another room where an older man is seated at a long table. Admiral Byrd is asked to sit down. The Master says his people are called the Ariani, and they've been observing humans for a long time, but only now are they choosing to interfere. The Master says that Admiral Byrd's race is too immature for atomic energy and are at risk of destroying themselves. The Master says every time they try to make contact, their ships are fired upon and pursued by fighter planes. So instead, they chose Admiral Byrd to carry this message. Because he's a famous and well-respected figure, the Master hopes that the world will believe him. After the meeting, the Admiral is escorted back to his plane. And after flying for a few minutes, a voice comes through the radio that control of the aircraft is now his. A voice says, Auf Wiedersehen, and disconnects.
Definitely Aryans.
When Admiral Byrd arrives at the Pentagon in March 1947, he is debriefed and interrogated for hours. He relays the message from the Master and advises the President. He's ordered to remain silent about the operation, and indeed, Admiral Richard E. Byrd never spoke a word about this mission again. The final entry in his diary is a number of years later. Admiral Byrd feels what he calls the long night coming, but doesn't want this knowledge to die with him.
Just as the long night of the Arctic ends, the brilliant sunshine of truth shall come again. And those who are of darkness shall fall in its light, for I have seen that land beyond the pole, that center of the great unknown. Admiral Richard E. Byrd, United States Navy, 24th of December, 1956.
And Admiral Byrd passed away 3 months later. This secret diary was found by his son, Richard Byrd Jr., and subsequently released, as was his father's wish. And 18 months after that, the Antarctic Treaty was signed, forbidding anyone from going to Antarctica without special permission from one of 12 signatory governments. And even with special permission, you may only go in a few small designated areas. Antarctica is bigger than Europe, bigger than Australia, bigger than the entire United States. Yet all that land is off limits.
Think about that. All that land is off limits. There's people that go over there to try to stream and their equipment gets taken. There's videos of that. You know, Agent had went over there, the streamer Agent went over there, and he was only able to supposedly withstand maybe 8 to 12 hours of cold, and then all of a sudden he had to leave. Next week he buys a Bentley Manzuri. It's kind of iffy that you can't even really, you know, see images too vague, too much of what the South Pole even looks like when you try to Google map it. You know what I mean? But there are other things when you do try to Google Antarctica, for example. So just doing my own little research on things, right? Just little locations, right? Alien locations on Google Maps, Antarctica. And it pulls up these coordinates right here, right? So if I put in these coordinates here, and it brings me, I'll bring myself to a new tab. It'll bring me to here, right? And I click on it. And of course, you think it's all white space here. But then you see the layer right here. Now, up close, I am already seeing, it looks like just ridges to you guys probably, right? But I'm pretty sure if I was to turn this around, or should I say do this, you can pretty much see the same thing that I'm seeing. That is a giant face in the ice. And of course, this is Antarctica. There's a giant face buried in Antarctica. Keep zooming out so you realize where we're at. We're in Antarctica. Giant face buried in the snow of Antarctica. And probably there's a few of these here. If we just look along like the ridges of things, right? This is probably the most detailed part of the map. But even the Anunnaki-shaped cone head right here. And literally in the book of Enoch, get a little of this, right? When you talk about the Nephilim, said to be the fallen angels, as King Osmond put in the chat. Oh, excuse me, yeah, King Osmond put in the chat, the fallen ones. The fallen angels are talked about in Antarctica. There's always talks about the giants that were seen in Antarctica. Right? They're saying that the fallen angels are imprisoned in Antarctica in the book of Enoch.
there. Will they come back? Many believers and non-believers alike think the Bible and similar ancient texts were created by man to provide an explanation as to why and how we got here. For some, the reasons in writing are divinely ordained. For others, the stories and myths told through these texts were written to make the unexplained a little more explainable. The Book of Enoch is one such ancient text. Enoch barely gets a nod in the Bible. He is acknowledged as an ancestor to Noah, and that's about it, but his own book tells a story of demons, archangels, and giants. According to the text, a group of angels called Watchers taught humans a trove of unholy concepts, and God imprisoned them deep inside the earth as punishment.
Now, does that or does not sound similar to what Admiral Byrd was saying when he interacted with them in the story that they gave him? The same exact way they say, hey, we were imprisoned here. Oh, why is it?
Some conspiracy theorists, notably Stephen Ben, taught humans a trove of unholy concepts, and God imprisoned them deep inside the earth as punishment. While the Book of Enoch doesn't specify where exactly on earth the Watchers lie dormant, some conspiracy theorists, notably Stephen Ben Nunn, think the fallen angels of Enoch have been imprisoned in the Antarctic ice, are still alive, and are waiting for their redemption. While this isn't the first creepy Antarctica story to surface, it's definitely the most devout. The Book of Enoch shares some stories and characters with the Bible. The Book of Enoch is an ancient text thought to have been lost for centuries. It is not part of biblical scripture since it is not officially recognized by Judaism or Christianity. This ancient text was discovered in the 18th century by explorer James Bruce but had been part of smaller Ethiopian Christian and Jewish sects since at least around 160 BCE. The Book of Enoch is a lengthy text, coming in at 5 volumes and 108 chapters. It contains references to angels, giants, and some other supernatural beings. No one knows for sure why it is not part of the Old or New Testament canons, but it was popular among ancient peoples, and there are some references to the beings Enoch describes in the King James Bible. In the Book of Enoch, 200 angels fell from grace. In the Book of Enoch, Enoch, a 7th-generation human after Adam and Noah's great-grandfather, reveals how fallen angels, known as Watchers, came down from heaven full of lust for mortal women and in rebellion against God. While still in heaven, Watchers were given the task of keeping an eye on the human race. They were to report to God regarding humanity's progress, but they were told never to intervene in the natural evolution laid out by the Creator. Despite this, the Watchers were taken by the beauty of humanity, and came down from heaven full of lust for mortal women and a need to choose wives from among the children of men and beget children. 200 angels came to earth in search of carnal pleasure. Once the Watchers arrived, they continued to ignore God's decree, and instead taught humans many things, including how to forge arms and jewelry. Eventually, they incurred God's wrath for ignoring His word. The Watchers sired the Nephilim, a race of giants who were both angel and human. The Watchers landed at Mount Hermon, on the border of modern Lebanon and Syria. In the King James Bible, Genesis chapter 6 verse 1, the 5th of May describe how the Watchers interbred with humans to create a new race of giants. When men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and took them wives of all which they chose. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bore children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. These human-angel hybrids are called the Nephilim in the Book of Enoch, and they grew to be giants at 3,000 ells tall. Humanity learned practices from the angels that led them to corruption and eventual destruction. The Nephilim, together with the Watchers, taught the human race about pagan practices and other skills that simultaneously advanced civilization and corrupted humanity. As the Book of Enoch explains, from these teachings arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray, and became corrupt in all their ways. Azazel, the leader of the Watchers, taught men to make tools for war and women to make themselves more attractive with jewelry and cosmetics. Shemiaza taught magical spells. Armeros taught the banishment of those spells. The angel Barakijel taught astrology. Kokebeel gave humans knowledge of astronomy. Chazakiel taught them about weather. Shamzil gave humans knowledge of the sun cycles. Sariel taught them the lunar cycles. Penemuel instructed humanity to read and write. and Kashtijin gave humanity the knowledge of medicine. Enoch tried to intervene between the angels and God. When God saw what the fallen angels and their offspring were doing, he warned Enoch there was going to be a great flood that would wipe out the entirety of humankind. God said he'd spare Enoch from this future scenario and invited him to heaven to witness what was coming. Enoch, acting as an intermediary between God and the fallen angels, told the watchers what God had in store for them. The lead fallen angel, Azazel, asked Enoch to intervene and beg God for mercy on the watchers' behalf. God refused the plea, and the great flood occurred, as did the fallen angel's imprisonment. When the flood occurred in the King James Bible, Noah, Enoch's descendant, and his family were spared from death. A battle between angelic good and evil ensued after the watchers, their wives, and the Nephilim brought humans knowledge that led them away from God. Their corruption and rebellious ways could no longer be overlooked by the Almighty. According to the Book of Enoch, righteous angels came to earth to fight the fallen angels, and the watchers were quickly defeated. As punishment for their digressions, the fallen angels were shackled and banished by God to Tartarus, a prison, where they await their redemption. According to Bible scholar and conservative activist Stephen Ben Nunn, Tartarus may be located deep beneath the Antarctica. The coldest, driest, and most barren continent on the planet is said to hold secrets that have yet to be discovered as of 2019. This once tropical land is now mostly covered in ice and has been the subject of mystery ever since the South Pole was formally discovered in the early family were spared from death. A battle between angelic good and evil ensued after the watchers, their wives, and the Nephilim brought humans knowledge that led them away from God. Their corruption and rebellious ways could no longer be overlooked by the Almighty. According to the Book of Enoch, righteous angels came to earth to fight the fallen angels, and the watchers were quickly defeated. As punishment for their digressions, the fallen angels were shackled and banished by God to Tartarus, a prison, where they await their redemption. According to Bible scholar and conservative activist Stephen Ben Nunn, Tartarus may be located deep beneath the Antarctica. The coldest, driest, and most barren continent on the planet is said to hold secrets that have yet to be discovered as of 2019. This once tropical land is now mostly covered in ice and has been the subject of mystery ever since the South Pole was formally discovered in the early 20th century. According to scientists, underneath the thick sheets of ice are mountain ranges, lakes, and ancient microbes in a state of suspended animation. In 2006, NASA announced it found an electromagnetic anomaly that stretches 151 miles across in the Wilkes Land area of Antarctica. This unknown mass is generally thought to be contained in a 300-mile-wide impact crater from a meteorite that struck the continent and potentially caused the Permian-Triassic extinction about 250 million years ago. While it could be nothing more than a natural entity, conspiracy theorists like Stephen Ben Nunn believe it is where the fallen angels are imprisoned. A YouTube commentator thinks the fallen angels are alive and imprisoned below the ice in Wilkes Land, Antarctica. Stephen Ben Nunn, a conservative commentator for the Israeli News Live YouTube channel, believes the massive object deep in the Antarctic ice causing a gravitational disturbance is actually the fallen angels and their offspring imprisoned by God but still very much alive. He cites passages in the Book of Enoch to bolster his theory, including 1 Enoch 18-1:16, "And I went towards the south, and it was burning day and night, where there were 7 mountains of precious stones, 3 towards the east and 3 towards the south." This could describe Antarctica in the summer season, which has nearly 24 hours of daylight. Enoch also describes a mountain range of 7 mountains which Ben Nunn believes is the Sentinel Mountain Range. Stephen Ben Nunn's hypothesis about the angels corresponds with the Earth's pole shifts. Mount Vinson is the highest mountain in Antarctica and sits in the middle of the Sentinel Range. Conservative activist and advocate for Israel Stephen Ben Nunn speculates the southern and eastern alignment of 6 peaks around Mount Vinson as described in the Book of Enoch are the range's alignment prior to the Great Flood that occurred around the same time as a shifting of the Earth's axis. This coincides with research conducted by Charles Hapgood, author of Earth's Shifting Crust, who believed such pole shifts were a regular occurrence and could explain a myriad of geological anomalies. The pole shift Ben Nunn references likely occurred around 11,000 years ago and may have changed Antarctica's climate as well. While Hapgood didn't explicitly reference the Watchers, he did admit the source of the shifts likely resided beneath the Antarctic ice sheets, though he had no clear idea of what it could be. Beyond this, the parallels between Hapgood and Ben Nunn's work are few and far between. A mysterious, icy staircase was found on Google Earth in 2017. In 2017, another frozen anomaly was spotted in the Wilkes Land area, an icy staircase that could be seen on Google Earth. Some conspiracy theorists believe the staircase was built by the Nephilim, who had the superior knowledge and strength to do so. Others think the structure was built by aliens or superior past civilizations, and some theorists even believe the Nazis constructed a landing strip there for UFOs. This theory is bolstered by a 2016 trip taken by former Secretary of State John Kerry to observe climate change patterns in the area. A month later, Patriarch Kirill of the Russian Orthodox Church made the trip to the area to see wildlife. Many believe the reasons for both trips are covers for something that could have a much more significant impact on humanity. Antarctic extraterrestrials and the Nephilim may be one and the same. Secret Space Program whistleblower Corey Good says he has been to Antarctica and has seen remnants of an ancient civilization of giants with elongated skulls he calls pre-Adamites. Good claims 3 massive, oval-shaped spaceships are located near these ruins, and the pre-Adamites were an extraterrestrial race of beings who were frozen in a cataclysmic event. This event around the same time as Hapgood's polar shift had. Might these frozen giants be the Nephilim as described in the Book of Enoch? The imprisoned fallen angels may get redemption in the Year of Mystery. Enoch mentions a year of mystery that could hint at the Watcher's release and the end of days. There are 2 different schools of thought about when and if the fallen angels will be released from their shackles. Some believe we are already in the last days, as prophesied by the Book of Revelation. If this is true, the fallen angels are out of prison wreaking havoc on earth and will do so until Judgment Day. Others believe they are still waiting in the ice to fulfill prophecy and will be released as Armageddon approaches.
Which it feels like we are very, very close to, does it not? I heard there's also living Nephilim in the Grand Canyon. Yes, that was another thing. We had looked at a video of that too, where someone had journeyed over there and they were pretty much a tourist that was, never seen from again. Pretty much had went there, and he was told not to go there where there were cameras also posted. He found like this hole in the bottom of the Grand Canyon, and it had like this doorway, and he went down it and pretty much never heard from the guy again. But yeah, and supposedly that was one of the things that he had saw that even, gained his curiosity to even go down there. Was supposedly he had saw a giant, and then he walked down there. And like I said, you never heard from the guy again. But Dainty Delighted, what's going on, by the way? So there is proof of, the Nephilim, the giants, being in Antarctica. And like I said, we just saw the giant face in there. Now this is the how Antarctica is depicted in the Book of Enoch. You see this big old map here. See how it looks like it's its own city pretty much, or its own land, Antarctica? Like it was the original country pretty much. It was the original Earth. Antarctica was the original Earth. There was the United States. There was no Russia, Germany, none of that. It was just Antarctica back in the day. Dinosaurs, giants, you name it. Everything was there from then. So look. But what is now Antarctica was the home of the serpent people. The serpent people, see? A vaguely humanoid race with heads like a great snake, and their bodies faintly scaled as with the scales of a serpent. Since the 2 races were utterly different in mind as well as in form. They did not understand each other at all. War broke out between them. The serpent people possessed hypnotic powers, which allowed them to appear human to the sons of God and their other human allies. They frequently passed among them as spies, but the humans developed a trick that could identify a serpent person immediately. The guards and the human, I guess this is entities and fortifications, required all those entering to pronounce the word, let's say Kinnigan? I guess Kinnigan? Oh, Kinnigan. Darrell didn't say what Kinnigan meant, but it was a serpent person's undoing, for the word could only be pronounced by human vocal cords. Kin in again. Okay, so I guess hey, if you see somebody that you think might, possibly be, just say Keninigan. 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 Keninigan or Keninigan? I want to see how's that pronounced. Okay, so there's Keninigan. All right. I want to see how it's pronounced though. Also, oh. That's what I was saying right. Keninigan. Okay. I was saying right. Keninigan. Antarctica. The atmosphere of firmament between heaven and earth. The spear of the Gan harvest. Aspiraces and Yakus. Nassau in Hebrew means to deceive. Nassau in Hebrew means to deceive. That's why NASA pretty much wants, even when you look at what NASA has, like if you look at NASA.gov and it says aliens in Antarctica, it says, what does it say after? Project to study exotic species and visitors in Antarctic. International Polar Year Aliens in Antarctica will assess the threat of humans carrying non-native seeds and spores into Antarctica. See, it doesn't say anything about what they found about the aliens in Antarctica. They're talking about capturing people that come there and try to, I guess you say, vandalize the land. You know what I mean? They're not necessarily talking. Yeah, crazy work, right? The threat of humans carrying non-native seeds and spores into Antarctica. Crazy work. Crazy work how they even word that. To try to throw you off. Just to try to throw you off about it. This is how Antarctica used to look. I'm seeing mermaids and whatnot over here on the left. Tartarism. I keep hearing about that too. Tartarism. Trump is trying to do a Tartarism. That was the world map from 10 centuries ago. Okay, so on wheels to the South Pole. It's a newspaper article about the South Pole. I guess that was from when Admiral Byrd had went. Antarctica is wild, man. See, these are other coordinates right here when they found a spaceship that had crashed. What was the one I just... Okay, so icy staircase. Let's see if we can find that one. Icy staircase. Doorway even there too. Some kind of doorway. Oh, that looks crazy right there. What coordinates is this one? Oh man, I wish I could find the coordinates to this one. What are the coordinates to this bad boy? You can translate to English, of course. But what are the coordinates to this bad boy here? I need to know. There's an actual ship that's buried right there. I don't want to see that. What are the coordinates to this? Where is this at? See, we can go back to where we were on the maps. Where is that at? So you can't go too far down. Can you? How far can you go down? Oh my. You go pretty far. Okay, so this is where it pretty much blurs out. So it looks like it might be around here somewhere. But like turned around, I guess. Man, I wish they had the coordinates for where this was. I would say ices there. Google Maps. Let me see. Let me see. Is this it? No, that's the one we just looked at. That's the one we just looked at. I want. What's this? What is this one? Where's my map? Where's my map? My map. Oh, where the hell am I? Where am I? Where am I? Oh, where am I? Where am I? I think I'm in the ice, but I don't know where I'm at. Oh, I am in the ice. Oh, this is the bottom where I was. Okay. This is the bottom that was glitched out. That was the bottom of the ice that was glitched out. But what does that say? What did that say? Clock. Where's that? Damn it. Oh, it's this one. Okay. Just to make sure. Okay. Alright, so let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. Cool. My brain is a little. Oh man, my brain is shutting down. What are the coordinates, man? That's God bless Reddit. God bless Reddit. What are the coordinates, man? All right, where he said those were. Let's do that. That is just creepy when you just click on it, right? All right, what's this? That neat. Buckle Island. Sturge Island. That's some weird names too in Antarctica. Oh wait, the Southern Ocean. Oh wait. We're by the South Pole. Wait. Is it? Wait. We're cooking with grease. We're cooking with grease. Wait a second. This is a big ass hole here. Is that where that hole was? Wait. Bet you have big ass holes around here somewhere. Does that render anymore? No? Somebody gotta have these fucking coordinates. Somebody gotta have these fucking coordinates. Just the same one we just looked at? No, right? Fuck is this? It definitely like something buried there. But it's like purposely blurred out. I wonder if I can find like a list of coordinates. Wait, what? What's this? What's this? What's this? The fuck is that? There's something right here, but it's blurred out on purpose. That looks weird as shit though. Oh wait, is this where the staircase was? But it's blurred out now? Oh, this looks crazy. Oh, Like a big ass ship just buried right here. The way it just comes up. Okay, so that's what they wanted us to see. Oh wow. Fisher Island. I want to find that fucking hole. I want to find that. That's what she said. I want to find that fucking hole. What's down here? Okay, what was that other one? What was the other one? Oh, it's the same one. This is further up. It's just further up. The same one I just saw. It was further up though. Same one I saw. Same one I saw. Wait, what?
Coming through, and it carves through the ice. An amazing ice tunnel that extends on the ice shelf. So these are formed by meltwater coming through, and it carves through the ice, which is why you have these fantastic alien-style shapes that these ribs that come through. And then the ice is super old and compressed, so there's very little air bubbles inside the ice, which makes it very, very blue. And it goes on for like 300 meters.
They gotta give me some more shit though. I want some motherfucking more coordinates. I want some real shit. I know they be wiping the internet clean of this shit, but I'm gonna find some shit. I'm gonna find some shit real quick. What he found? What's this? Back up. Nigga, where you at? Back up. Where you at? Okay. Okay. What island is that? Is that close to where we at? Okay. Oh! Oh, he's in there. This is what they hiding in Antarctica. In the facilities. Oh, wow. He got in there. Look at the stuff they found. Look at all the alien stuff that they found. Where is that? The fuck is that? Where is that at? We'll have to find where that at. Where is that? Where's that, damn it? Was that it over here? Let me see something. Okay, video it. Back up. Back up real quick. Ross Archipelago, Ross Island. I know I'm close. I know I'm close, damn it. I know I'm close, damn it. Where is this? Bring it back to a little bit. I think I see where it's at. I did not mean to hit the mic, sorry. I just want to know where he is. That's what I can see. I wish he put the coordinates. All right, let me see. Let's see. Here's a couple of things that's here. So let's do this. Wait, what did I say? Oh, the Nazi Arctic base is still there. What's this? Oh wow. Damn it, it's blurred out though. I feel like this is gonna be hard for us to find that little island. I feel like it was right here though. I feel like it was somewhere around right there. Let's slide it over real quick. So I just want to see how far it is Antarctica. Oh wait, am I coming over the same places? I feel like I am. Like this looks like where he was. Oh, this is it. This is it. This is it. Okay. I found it. Oh, shit. This is it. I was right. Because there's a little thing right there. Okay. All right. Where the video at? Back your ass up. Back up. Back up, goddammit. We found you. Okay. Where else was he? We found it. Okay. So about right here, right? And he moves it in. Okay. So right up under there, right up under here, right? He moves it in. Where is that? Over here? Is it in here? Oh, there it is. It's right here. It's down here. Bingo. You found it. How did he click in there? Which one did he click in? Which one of these mods is he clicking? A Stock Plaza. Weather. Lab. What's in here? Oh. We in the back door, y'all. We done got in the back door. I don't know where we at. We in somewhere. Oh, we're here. We're here, goddammit. We're here, goddammit. We're here. Ha 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 ha. We're here. Ha 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 ha. Bunch of shit around here. Shit. Oh. Excuse me. Trapping in 1961. John Dearborn's Grab. Okay. Oh, that door is open before. Oh. Oh, it's outside. It's back outside. That hallway at. Give me better hallway. Right. Put me right here, damn it. What is this shit? What you got in here? What you got in here? Like xenomorph heads. I ain't gonna hold you. Which I got up in here. Look at all this shit. Look at the dinosaur fossils. Dinosaur fossils in Antarctica, y'all. Alright, let's get the hell up out of here. We done found it. We done found a place. Let's investigate this shit. Fuck's the door at? How'd I get out this bitch? This way, right? Yeah, there we go. I can't go no further. I'm free, fucker. All right. What y'all hiding here? Arrival Heights Laboratory. What you hiding here? That shit was in a cut too. Okay. So, last but not least, where's my phone at? Last but not least, it's getting late. There was one other one I wanted you guys to check out here with me. And they were pretty much talking about another group besides Admiral Byrd that had went there to Antarctica and pretty much, you know, we never heard from again.
Here she is from Albuquerque, Linda Moulton Howe.
Hey, thanks, Whitley. It was a year and a half ago, in January 2015, I received an email from a retired 60-year-old U.S. Navy petty officer, first-class flight engineer. He asked me to only call him Brian to protect him because he works in an aerospace company today. He entered the U.S. Navy in 1977 and retired 20 years later in 1997 from the military. He and his C-130 crew encountered high strangeness in Antarctica from 1995 to 1996 several times. They all saw rapidly moving silver discs over the trans-Antarctic mountains. Brian and his crew also saw a huge football field-sized hole in the ice, only about 5 to 10 miles from the geographic South Pole, that was supposed to be a no-fly zone. But during an emergency medevac crisis, to speed up their trip, they flew across that no-fly zone and saw apparently what they were not supposed to see. A huge hole in the ice that looked like it was an entrance to an underground installation. Later at camp near Marie Birdland, some dozen scientists disappeared for 2 weeks. When they reappeared, Brian's flight crew was assigned to pick them up, and all were silent and appeared scared. Brian and his C-130 crew received orders to not talk about the silver discs or the huge ice hole or the missing scared scientists. Repeatedly, the crew was sternly told that they did not see what they kept seeing, but Brian was never asked to sign an official non-disclosure agreement. So now that he's retired from the Navy while still working in civilian aerospace, Brian wanted to share what he has seen and experienced with me at Earth Files because he is convinced that an alien presence is living and working on this planet. We had never met until Thursday evening, June 2nd, 2016, at the Contact in the Desert Conference in Joshua Tree, California. We organized to meet with his nephew, Kelly, and a friend to talk about Brian's Antarctic experiences. We all went to a local Mexican restaurant, and after dinner, we kept talking until after midnight outside in the restaurant parking lot under trees. That weekend, while I was still doing lectures, workshops, and panels at the Contact Conference, Brian returned to his home in Phoenix, Arizona. On Monday, June 6th, he was back at his aerospace job, which he has always kept confidential. I don't have a number there to call him because he wants to keep his job protected. But that morning, Brian received a surprising and disturbing phone call that he describes now.
The voice on the other end of... I was back at work on Monday after the conference, and my cell phone rang at about 10:30, quarter to 11 in the morning, and the voice on the other end of the line said, "Is this Brian?" And I said, "Yes, who's this?" Because I didn't recognize the number. It says, "I want to tell you that what you've been talking about, you need to stop talking about." And I said, "What stuff was that?" And he says, "We know that you were with Linda Howe on last Thursday night, and we know that you went to dinner at a Mexican restaurant in Joshua Tree, and we were aware of what you were talking about with..."
Imagine you get that phone call, right? Imagine you get that phone call, someone talking about, "Oh, I know you was at such and such restaurant. I know you was talking to such and such, and we even heard what you were talking about. You know, we'd be appreciative if you wouldn't talk about that type of thing again, you know?"
Her and other people, and that your experience that you had when you were on the ice, when you were in the service, we don't want you talking about that. Specifically, we don't want you talking about the scientists that you picked up after being missing for a couple weeks. And I said, "How would you know about that? I've only talked to certain people." And the voice in the phone said, "Well, we know pretty much everything." And then they said, "Just don't be putting that out there anymore. Certain people would prefer that you not talk about that." And I said, "Well, I'll consider that." And then the phone went dead. There was a click. Whoever on the other end hung up. I was like, wow, this is out of the blue.
What did you do next?
Well, I was kind of curious, so I took the number off my cell phone and Googled it on the internet. It came back as the general phone number for the NSA.
The National Security Agency in Fort Meade, Maryland.
Yes. I called Kelly, my nephew, and he Googled it too.
Why would you get a threat specifically using my name now in June of 2016?
The only thing that I come up with is that report that's been going on the internet of that British documentary team that was down there in Antarctica,
right?
Something that was found under the ice. That team went missing, and they have not found those people since. Possibly that documentary team was in the same area where those scientists went missing for those 2 weeks, and that somebody doesn't want putting two and two together and going, well, you know, there's people down there that went missing for 2 weeks back in the 90s, and now these people are missing and haven't been found yet. Maybe there's a correlation there.
The British documentary footage that Brian is referring to was first reported in a March 18, 2002 press release from the Atlantis Mapping Project in Washington, D.C. that began, quote, the U.S. government said it will seek to block the airing of a video found by Navy rescuers in Antarctica that purportedly reveals that a massive archaeological dig is underway 2 miles beneath the ice, close quote. The video was allegedly the property of a Beverly Hills company called Atlantis TV that produced the Atlantis Mapping Project channel for the BBC in London until 2015 when it was closed down. The March 2002 release also said that the Atlantis TV crew had disappeared and that 2 U.S. Navy officers had found the missing production crew's videotape, quote, in an abandoned supply dump 100 miles west of Vostok Station, close quote. That would be near the South Pole.
They killed look at that, again, the South Pole. They don't want nobody going near that South Pole. I'm telling you. That is where the ancient city is. I'm starting to think this whole heaven and earth, this whole heaven and hell thing, there's a city over there that is like heaven, and then there below it is hell. I guarantee you heaven and hell is right there in Antarctica. Or how it's depicted to us is there in Antarctica. They don't want anyone going over there to the South Pole. The Anunnaki and the ancient aliens, the Nephilim, they are there. The original city of the reptilians, they are there in Antarctica.
MP press release said the video shown to National Science Foundation researchers at the South Pole's Amundsen Scott Station showed a pyramid and, quote, other spectacular ruins and things they could not go into, close quote. Allegedly, Navy SEALs came in 1 or more helicopters to take objects away. Officials of the U.S. Naval Support Task Force in Antarctica denied the story and said the Navy did not possess any video shot by the missing Atlantis TV crew. But at the same time, there was another U.S. legal action in 2002 to block the release of a hardcover book entitled Raising Atlantis by Tom Grenius, a novel based on fact. The book is about a secret U.S. military expedition that discovers ancient ruins 2 miles beneath the ice in Antarctica. The government allowed the first ebook version in the spring to be released with sensitive information about U.S. underground continuity of government installations, but blocked the hardcover release until the sensitive information was deleted. Could that big ice hole that Brian and his C-130 Navy crew saw near the South Pole in 1995 and the later incident in early 1996 of the missing National Science Foundation scientists be linked to the 2002 Atlantis Mapping Project news release about the missing documentary crew and videotape of pyramids and other structures beneath the ice? If the U.S. government is trying to cover up the discovery of pyramid and other structures 2 miles below the ice near the South Pole in Antarctica, the secret would be revolutionary, because the last time the entire Antarctica continent was free of ice is generally considered to be about 15 million years ago. So any advanced architecture on land beneath the ice would be that old as well. Brian, would you have ever suspected that we were being spied upon and listened to in both the restaurant and where we talked on the grass near the parking lot?
I would never have thought that. But now, my 20 years in the military, there are things that I saw that I really can't talk about that tells me and has shown to me that our government is capable of anything. Okay, so finding this out, that they knew that you and I and other people were where we were that night, it does not surprise me. With the work that you do, and as accurate as the information you find and as hard as you work to verify the truth of what you report on, I can imagine that you are watched quite a bit, you know?
We're supposed to be American citizens protected by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. We are not doing anything that is wrong.
No, I don't think we are either.
And you were never asked in your service for the United States Navy to sign a non-disclosure agreement about any of those efforts in Antarctica, correct?
Yeah. At the time when I was in the service and those incidents happened, we were verbally told we couldn't say anything. to forget about it, but I never signed the non-disclosure of anything that I did while I was serving in the Navy.
In Antarctica.
In Antarctica, yes.
Now let's play an excerpt from our original January 30th, 2015 interview.
Here's this huge hole in the ice, almost like a cave entrance, but it was large enough that you could fly a C-130 into it, a hole that went down. We were told not to fly that area, but we continued our mission and picked up our medical emergency and turned around and had to come back to South Pole to refuel. And when we got close to that air sampling again, we were told, deviate this way so many miles and then turn back on course. Made our way back to McMurdo, and the entire crew was told to report to the skipper's office. We all got sat in this room, and this guy came in that nobody had seen before and said, okay, you guys saw this thing? You didn't see it.
And he means the big, deep hole.
Yes, big hole in the ice that was supposedly the air sampling station. We were told to not talk about it ever, and that area was considered off limits for research.
In your email to me, you wrote, talk among the flight crews was that there is a UFO base at the South Pole, and some of the crew heard talk from some of the scientists working at the pole of EBAs, an acronym for extraterrestrial biological entities, working with the scientists at their air sampling camp, which is the large hole in the ice.
Yeah. We're told not to talk among ourselves officially, but the guys, after a flight, you have a few beers, and it's like, yeah, I heard these scientists talking about that there's some guys there at Pole that were working with these strange-looking men. They weren't saying, alien or extraterrestrial, whatever, and that the air sampling station was actually a joint base with the scientists and the ETs.
In your email to me, you said, quote, none of the scientists would talk to any of the crew on the plane, and they looked scared.
That was a mission. It was probably a 2.5-hour flight from McMurdo, in the middle of nowhere. We put this crew out there McMurdo had lost communication with. You're supposed to check in every so often by radio to tell McMurdo that everything's okay. So after they hadn't been heard of, we got sent back out there. Nobody around. All the equipment was still there, but the entire camp was gone. We called McMurdo on their radio to make sure that the radio was working, and we could hear McMurdo fine. A week later, supposedly these scientists had gotten back to camp and wanted to be picked up. And we went back in there after we got airborne. I went back looking around, and these people's faces, they look scared is what they look. And I asked my loadmaster, where have these guys been? And he said, I don't know, I can't get any words out of them. Blank stares, and he offered them food and stuff, and like nobody would take anything. And so we get back to McMurdo and unload their gear. It was put in isolation. Kind of weird. Why is that stuff being isolated? With everybody talking in the camp, all the civilians. Yeah, those guys went back to Christchurch, and they had a special flight for these guys. And nobody said anything.
Am I understanding correctly that each of the science groups that you guys flew in and out of the Antarctic base, they knew they were going to work with extraterrestrial biological entities down in that big hole?
What somebody had overheard was that there was an installation joint venture at Pole, not necessarily at the South Pole Station, but in the vicinity of South Pole. They were conducting some kind of project.
Between extraterrestrials and the human scientists.
Correct. It's like, man, what did these guys see? Why were they gone for 2 weeks that nobody knew where they were? It makes you wonder, it's like, okay, so what is our government and other governments doing that we don't know about that's going on down there with visitors from somewhere else? And what possibly is still going on down there?
Brian, what can anyone do to an agency that calls up from anonymous voices who do not even identify themselves by name or agency they are calling from, and then try deliberately to intimidate?
I don't know what we can do. If the government says it's not going to happen or shut up, that's what happens. I think people just have to come forward and tell what they know. It's like one person stands up in a crowd and says, no, I'm not going to do it. And you know what? Somewhere in that crowd, there are other people that feel the exact same way. And if one more person stands up and one more person stands up, pretty soon you've got a crowd, and we need to get back into that kind of mindset and make the government serve us and not us serve the government.
Brian, would you please read the email that you sent to me?
Okay. Linda, I was listening to your reporting, Bill Tompkins, and his knowledge about the alien races and the agendas they are attempting to carry out. I started to realize the things that my father had told me in his ending years of life that now made total sense to me. His account of the times during World War II flying bombing missions over Germany, the balls of light, which he called Foo Fighters, his two missions that he thought he and his crew were not going to make it back from Germany because his plane had been shot up so badly, flying only on two engines. And when he thought that everything was lost, he told me that he turned to his co-pilot, and there sitting between them was the image of Christ. He told me that Christ put his hand over his hand on the throttles of his B-17 and pushed him up to full power. This next thing my dad then said is what he was engulfed in a white light so bright he could not see anything in the cockpit of his bomber. And then the next instant, his plane was over the English Channel, and he had lost several hours of time. As my dad was telling me about this mission, he was upset and crying. I had never seen my dad ever cry before in my life. Until the day my dad died, he would not say any more about that mission. He would tell me about his other missions flying over Germany as many times as I wanted to hear them. That one, only once did he talk about. That mission, I believe, was one of the Foo Fighter encounters he had, and his crew may have been abducted and then returned to the aircraft just before the plane reached England. Our family lineage is Nordic and Norwegian and goes back to the Viking clans. My dad's side of the family are all blue-eyed blondes, and my mom's side is German descent. What your guest, Bill Tompkins, was telling me about Nordic reptilian connection and some of the Nordic-type alien species has me wondering if my family is involved with that somehow. My dad also talked about his dreams of what he called reptile men during his time flying missions over Germany. He would laugh that off and say that he probably read too many comic books as a kid, but I think it scared him, and he had encounters also with the reptilians during one or more of his flights over Germany. I think all this means something, and hearing Bill Tompkins has triggered a better understanding of things that have happened.
Bill Tompkins, who Brian is referencing, is now a 93-year-old retired aerospace engineer and author of a recent book entitled Selected by Extraterrestrials, My Life in the Top Secret World of UFOs, Think Tanks, and Nordic Secretaries. Mr. Tompkins' extraordinary life included flying all over the United States in the 1940s to secret sites at Lockheed, Northrop, Douglas, and other aerospace companies, and top universities that were doing secret work for the United States Navy. In May 2016, I did an interview with him for my news website, earthfiles.com. Bill Tompkins told me as a young man in early 1942, he was inducted into the U.S. Navy, where he was asked to make scale models from photographs of extraterrestrial aerial craft the various corporate Navy contractors had learned about through government intelligence operatives that included Nazi SS manufacturing of anti-gravity spacecraft. Tompkins also learned that behind Adolf Hitler in the Second World War, there were two different species of reptilian humanoids. One included what he called Dracos from the Draco constellation, about 12 light years from Earth, and known as a satellite of our own Milky Way galaxy. According to Bill Tompkins, Navy intelligence learned that humanoid reptilians from the Draco constellation were manipulating Hitler to annihilate the Hebrews on Earth and populate the whole planet with blonde, blue-eyed Nordics that were another type of extraterrestrial under the control of the Draco reptilians. Bill Tompkins and his naval superiors were very confused by the idea that hostile reptiles and beautiful blonde humanoids were working together to take over planet Earth. Adding to their confusion were other beautiful Nordic humanoids that helped the Allies to defeat Hitler. That complex and insidious chess game haunted everyone then and still does today. Nordic blood and blonde-haired U.S. Navy flight engineer Brian and his father who saw Christ in the crashing jet in World War II. They are definitely good guys. But Whitley, who, what, and why are there blonde and reptilian humanoids that want to destroy Hebrew bloodlines and perhaps all of Homo sapiens sapiens?
You talk about a difficult question. That, I think, qualifies as a difficult question. You know, I've had...
Just think about what I said, though. Remember when I said I think it really is, and they just confirmed it. It is Draconian reptilians over there. I said, yo, I think there are Draconian reptilians versus the Anunnaki. I called it.
I had in my life experience with the blonde people. A couple of big experiences with them. One was a long telephone call with one of them who was, at the time of the call, in the home of a United States Defense Department physicist. What? Hold on, Linda. We decided not to edit this interruption out of the show for reasons that will become obvious in just a moment. I refer in it to my Awakening series, and the material in Awakenings 18, 19, and 20 relate to what Anne was telling me during this episode. And now let's get back to my discussion with Linda about what was happening. Linda, just let me go back. You know what just happened?
Well, it sounds like a computer or something just popped up.
Yeah, what happened was this. My phone is on silent, and suddenly Siri turned on and asked me if I wanted to call Anne's hospital.
Oh, my God!
It's sitting here totally untouched.
God, do you think Anne is there?
Well, all through the interview, I've been feeling Anne's presence really strongly and getting a lot of information from her about very deep soul work that doesn't seem superficially to have to do with the interview, but it's certainly going to be in my Awakening series that I've been doing on Unknown Country. But let's now look again. We were just talking about these blonde beings, and I was talking about the ones I had interacted with, who were obviously not the bad guys. I've mentioned before on this show that the one I had the telephone conversation with was very wary of the Greys, saying that if we started a war with them, they would never let us quit fighting, and they would never let us win, which struck me as very like them in terms of personality as I understand it. I wouldn't be surprised if that would be exactly what they would do. But there was another time when these two enormous blonde people showed up in my apartment in Manhattan, which had rather low ceilings, much to their discomfort. And I blurted out when they asked me what they could do for me, I said, you could show me one of your children, which I've always regretted. And yet they did a few weeks later in an airport in Colorado, in Stapleton, the old Stapleton Airport in Denver. And I've spoken about this many times, so all I will say is that under the circumstances, they showed me one of their children, and with the child was the scientist from Boulder, from the foothills above Boulder, and a heavily disguised gray, about 5 feet tall, who appeared to be taking care of the gigantic 6-year-old. It was a very, very...
Okay, so that was pretty much into that. So the last thing I wanted to share with you guys is another mission where they went over there to Antarctica and they pretty much did run into, you know, the reptilians, and this crew didn't live to tell about it. Pretty much, this crew did not live to tell about it.
This episode of the Y-Files is brought to you by PDS Debt. The Russian team at Lake Vostok in Antarctica drilled through 2 miles of ice. They were inches away from hitting water that hadn't seen sunlight in 20 million years. Then communications went dark. 5 days later, 2 scientists were dead. The official report said hypothermia. A witness statement tells a different story. No country owns Antarctica, but you need permission to visit. You're restricted to designated areas, and you must have a government-approved escort. They say these rules are to protect the environment, but people who've been there know better. These rules are there to protect something else, something dangerous. At the bottom of the world, there are monsters, and we created them.
All right, cut. That was terrible. Everybody back to one. Ah, human, there you are.
Here I am, you called me.
Yeah. Where do you keep your TV makeup kit?
Makeup? What do you need that for?
Contouring for crab cat standing. That jerk doesn't sparkle on camera like I do.
On camera? You're making a movie?
Not just a movie, the movie. I'm the writer, director, producer, and the star.
Y'all know, guys, I'm
It's
just
got
going
everything.
through Google right here.
Explosions, stunts,
I'm
and a
just literally
climactic
just-
showdown.
I'm in
It's gonna
Antarctica,
crush
y'all.
the summer box office.
I'm here.
This
I'm
actually
just
sounds
moving
pretty
all
good.
around the ice.
Well, yeah, except
I'm
craft
trying to find
services are behind schedule. Wardrobe ran out of sequins. Gertie's humps are sore from shuttling
They
the
have
crew.
some of these
And your
half-moon
bedroom is not a
islands.
casting office.
And I'm trying to figure
gonna
out
owe
why
you
they
some new
keep calling
sheets,
them
by the way.
half-moon
And the guy playing
There's
Crab
even
Cat,
names
he keeps pinching the
Chimera
extras
base.
with his claws.
My house is base camp?
They're alien base.
Of course it is. Who's paying for this anyway?
Well, I kind of blew through my savings and cashed in my fish coin. The production's floating on my credit cards, but they're almost maxed out. Human, could you give me some bread, some dough, some clams, 100 grand maybe?
Absolutely not. You need help.
What I need is an Academy Award. But sure, I'll take whatever help I can get.
Why don't you call PDS Debt?
Oh, did you just greenlight today's sponsor?
I sure did.
She's going through this sponsor. But yeah,
Feeling
like I said,
buried under debt, it's like your money's working harder for your lenders than it is for you. Well, it does.
while he's doing that real quick, while he's putting in the ad before this resource with that. Yeah, like I said, Chimera Base, another Half Moon Island, but then you go around. And it's to the different parts of Antarctica, and you see Half Moon Island quite frequently. Another one, there's another base over here, but there's nothing there. See what I'm saying? They calling these things bases, but then you look and it's like it's nothing actually there. It's like it's not no military base or anything like that. It's just land. So it's like, what's under there? Valley Largo. It's a Dr. Guillermo Man base. Look at see Half Moon. Look at Half Moon Beach. Like, how is there a beach in Antarctica? You know what I mean? In Antarctica, how is there a beach in Antarctica? Next to snow out. Look at this one. This one threw me way off for a loop. This one threw me way for a loop. Deception Island. Okay, so let's get back to it.
When they found something strange.
Yeah, 4chan always brings the good stuff.
A massive spider-like creature clearly visible against the ice and snow. Nothing could survive there, not for millions of years. But something does.
I told you, they're good.
And a doctor. He served at McMurdo Station in the 1990s, and Joe knew exactly what that creature was. People were skeptical until Anton posted photos. His father's patches from Antarctic Development Squadron 6. Military commendations on an Antarctica-shaped plaque. Everything checked out. Joe was the type who asked questions. At McMurdo, they showed him the no-go zones. Most of Antarctica is restricted by international treaties, but there is one zone about 30 miles east of the base that even military expeditions avoided. When Joe asked about it, they said it was classified. Anton posted the coordinates. When you check them on Google Earth today, the entire area is blurred. Another user found something else in the area, a gray monolith. Soon that image was censored. On Joe's first night at McMurdo, there was an incident. 7 soldiers burst through the infirmary's door. They wore snow camo, but no insignia, no unit patches. SFODA, he figured. There were lots of special forces at McMurdo. The soldier they carried in was a mess. His white Gore-Tex parka was shredded. Steam rose from cuts, too precise for any animal. Razor-thin lines that went straight to the bone. The bleeding wouldn't stop. The injured soldier was screaming.
We let them loose! They were frozen and we let them loose!
Joe needed to know what caused these injuries. He scanned each soldier's face looking for the leader. He asked, "What did you let loose?" He heard a familiar click behind him. He turned around. A gun was in his face. In the early 2000s, a Japanese vessel patrolling Antarctic waters spotted something unusual. At first, they thought it was an iceberg, a featureless white mass floating on the surface. Then it moved. As the ship approached, they realized it was alive. It was 60 feet long with smooth white skin. Some crew members saw limbs, arms, hands, even fingers. Others reported a tail like a mermaid.
Yeah, a tail like a mermaid and smooth white skin, huh? I think I dated her in Atlantic City.
You didn't.
Because of that broad, I'm still not allowed at the Harris.
Can I get back to work here?
Who hits on 18 against a 6?
Was it a soft 18?
Don't you dare.
All reports agreed on one detail. Its eyes were large, round, and black, and they looked almost human. They weren't the first to see it, or the last. They have a name for it, Ninyan, the Japanese word for human. The crews who encountered the Ninyan never felt threatened. It just watched them floating silently in the darkness.
So that's how it's pronounced. Ninyan, not Caninian. It's pronounced Ninyan, so the K is silent. Okay, like knowledge. Wow.
These veteran sailors knew every whale, seal, and fish species in the area. This was something new. The pattern was always the same. First, a disturbance in the water. Then a pale form rises to the surface, almost invisible against the ice. The creature observes the ships for a few minutes, then disappears silently underwater. In 2007, a Japanese magazine brought the Ninyan to the mainstream. It published a blurry satellite image showing something enormous moving in Antarctic waters. People began searching Google Earth for evidence. They found coordinates showing shadowy white figures beneath the surface near the Antarctic coast. The shapes were too large to be whales, too defined to be icebergs. A few days later, the images vanished. Cryptozoologists believe the Ninyan represents evidence of intelligent life in Earth's oceans, a species that evolved alongside us but remained hidden in the deep cold water. Others have a more disturbing theory. Its humanoid features are proof of genetic experimentation. Secret research facilities in Antarctica spliced whale DNA with humans and created the Ninyan. Luckily, whales are peaceful. But what would happen if scientists altered the DNA of something more dangerous?
Wait a second. It's coming to me now. Okay, so think about this, right? Whales, right? Whale DNA. All right, so whale face, right? How's a whale's face looks? Face of a whale. Give me the face of a whale. Not a dolphin, damn it. Give me the face of a whale. Okay. Face of a whale. Oh, this is a beluga whale. Okay, that's what it says. Okay, so a beluga whale. Wait a second. Beluga whale. And I'm thinking of something with a scaly like tail. So the reason why I'm thinking that, right? Oh, wow. They have the same exact shape heads. I know I'm not off on a tangent. With that one. Same exact style, shape heads, though.
The injured soldier wouldn't stop screaming, so the others gagged him. Joe stared down the barrel of a .45 caliber M1911. The man holding it said, "Treat him, no questions." Joe got to work. The kid was losing blood fast. The soldier kept the gun trained on him for a few seconds, making a point. Joe grabbed a trauma kit and asked, "Army?" The guy nodded. "Captain Jones, 10th SFG." Joe knew the 10th Special Forces Group. Green Berets trained for cold weather combat. Jones holstered his weapon. Joe glanced at it and said, "No Beretta?" Jones shook his head. Not enough stopping power. Joe wanted to ask, but anger flashed across Jones's face. Joe just said, "I'll take care of your boy, Captain." And Jones relaxed, then nodded toward the door. His men filed out. Jones said, "Thanks, Doc. You'll be seeing a lot of me." And he was right. Day after day, bodies arrived with devastating injuries. These weren't tears or gashes. They were incisions, perfectly straight lines that went bone deep. Joe had seen bear attacks, shark bites, industrial accidents, but this was different. This was butchery. In every case, the base commander ordered the same cause of death: hypothermia, even when the body was still warm. But Joe's most disturbing experience happened during a storm. He was driving with another officer when they hit something big and heavy. Joe hopped out to check the damage, but his partner started screaming for him to get back in the truck. Joe ignored him and looked under the mangled front end. At that moment, the no-go zones, the secrecy, the injuries, everything made sense. The leg under the truck was bone white and spindly. Not quite flesh, but not quite exoskeleton. He couldn't see the whole creature, but it had to be enormous. The leg alone stretched 7 or 8 feet and was strong enough to crush the steel of the truck. It twitched once, then disappeared into the storm. A few days later, he'd learned what was filling his infirmary with bodies. Joe found a journal hidden in one victim's coat. It had descriptions of large white predators that could cross Antarctica's terrain in massive 50 to 60-foot leaps. The researchers called them striders. Joe became obsessed and started breaking into offices at night. he found classified files about winter operations at a facility in the no-go zone east of the base. An expense report listed research equipment, but it was really a requisition for ammunition. Thousands of rounds of tungsten core penetrators, not exactly standard issue. Whenever a soldier showed up with an injury, Joe would ask what happened, but nobody would talk. It was always a training accident. The base commander realized Joe was a security risk. He was notified he'd be shipping out within the week. 3 days before leaving McMurdo, in the middle of the night, Joe was shaken awake. It was Captain Jones. He said, "Doc, we need to talk." Joe started to tell him to sleep it off. Then he felt something heavy land on his chest. It was a piece of a strider's leg. Joe immediately started to panic. Jones put his hand over Joe's mouth. As Joe's eyes adjusted to the darkness, he saw Jones was covered in blood. He couldn't tell whose. Jones said he just returned from a mission. He needed to tell him about it. After months of trying to find the truth, Joe wasn't sure he wanted to know anymore. But Captain Jones was going to tell him anyway. Lake Vostok lies 2 miles beneath Antarctic ice. It hasn't seen sunlight in 20 million years. The Russians spent decades drilling toward it. In 2012, they broke through. Then, everything went dark.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Not now.
Sorry.
For 5 days, nothing. No radio contact, no signals, just silence. When communications returned, 2 scientists were dead. The official cause? Hypothermia. But Dr. Anton Padalka's classified report tells a different story. The team found something in Lake Vostok that evolved in complete isolation for millions of years. They called it Organism 46b. The creature stretched over 30 feet long and looked like a giant octopus.
No, did it have testicles?
Tentacles.
What'd I say?
Yes, it had tentacles, but instead of 8, it had 14.
Oh, so a tetradecapus. You see what I did there?
Its skin was almost transparent.
So they're describing the creature that I showed you guys in the picture that I posted when I said I was going live. This is that creature that they're talking about.
Perfect camouflage in the darkness. But its most terrifying feature wasn't its size, it was its intelligence. The first diver was 10 feet from the creature when it released a toxin into the water.
I'll show you a picture of it real quick in case you guys forgot what I'm referring to here. The picture that they found. Let's see. Creature found. See? This is the creature that they found. Looks very, and this is why I keep saying, like the xenomorphs, they found, and this is the other one. This is the other species that they found in Antarctica. And it looks something straight out of Godzilla. That's the crazy part. This looks like something straight out of Godzilla. But this looks almost like looks almost like the facehugger from Aliens. Looks just like the facehugger from Aliens. And this is why I keep saying, I guarantee you those draconian aliens that they're trying to, the aliens that they're over there screwing with the genetics they're screwing with the genetics. I guarantee you a lot of them look like the xenomorphs. I guarantee you some of them look like that. See even how these things look, how their heads are shaped. I'm telling you, bro. I'm not. I know I'm not crazy as far as that goes.
He was instantly paralyzed.
He tread water, dead, then popped its remains in mouth. It's like it had hypnotized him telepathically.
The second death was worse. The creature could shapeshift.
It shaped itself into form of human diver. We thought it was one of colleagues swimming towards us in scuba gear. By the time the closest scientist realized what it was, it had grabbed him and torn him to bits.
The research team captured it temporarily. But like everything else connected to Lake Vostok, organism 46b vanished. Russia's official statement mentioned only bacteria. Then they restricted all access to the lake. The original drilling site was abandoned. Armed guards now patrol the area. In 2017, genetic researchers analyzed water samples from Lake Vostok. They found DNA sequences suggesting intelligence far beyond any known cephalopod. Then everything disappeared. The samples, the data, the reports. According to official records, the research never happened. What made organism 46b so important that it had to be kept secret? Dr. Padalka's final report gives a clue. During its brief captivity, organism 46b figured out how to disable security systems. It understood cameras and lights.
This wasn't just ancient predator. This was something else. Something that had evolved in complete isolation, developing abilities we can't comprehend. The shape-shifting, the toxins, the intelligence. These weren't just survival adaptations. They were weapons.
The lake remains under constant surveillance. Military vessels patrol its perimeter. Satellite images are scrubbed. For a lake with nothing but bacteria, there's a lot of effort being made to keep people out. Or...
Now, you know what's crazy? I was just saying that to myself too, right? When you go to Lake Vostok, like a lot of Antarctica, as you see, is pretty much blurred out. Like even this part right here, they got this whole shit edited out right here. These little parts right here, it's little parts that are just pretty much edited out on Google Maps where shit used to be. Like I remember the alien aircraft that used to be there, right? Like I just found this one. This one is here still. This one is here still. If you go right here, this one is right here. I found this one right here. This one is still here. This alien aircraft that's buried in Antarctica is right here. This is one of the ones that they have not blurred out. But there was one that you saw in the other video where it's like dented in there. You can see, just to show you guys, this is Antarctica still. Yeah, see? This is Antarctica still. But you have to really find it. You have to Google the actual coordinates of where it actually is. But, yeah. Bada. The disc alien area. And they have it, like I said, blurred. So you can't really tell what it is, of course. But then there's the pyramids right here. This is the ancient pyramids. They have blurred. You can tell when it's something that they wanted to keep secret when they have it blurred. So you can't tell the indentation of things. You know what I mean?
Keep something in. Jones' team was ordered to secure a facility deep in the no-go zone. They loaded up for war. Heavy weapons, body armor, an M134 minigun that could fire 4,000 rounds per minute. They weren't taking any chances. The entrance looked normal, just another research building in the middle of nowhere. That was the point. What was underneath wasn't normal at all. The first body they found was face down in a hallway. These weren't slash marks. These were surgical cuts, clean and deliberate. Then they heard skittering. Something moved in the shadows. Before anyone could react, it lunged. A strider the size of a large dog. The soldiers opened fire, but it was already on Henderson. The thing didn't just attack, it dissected with perfect cuts. Henderson was still conscious and screaming when the strider peeled his face off. 11 men became 10. Large striders were dangerous, but at least you can see them coming. The small ones were the problem. Not much bigger than house cats, they moved in packs through the vents. They could climb, they could jump. The team learned to watch the ceiling after finding Mitchell. He'd been dragged down a hallway and into an office. His legs were still twitching while the striders went to work. 10 men became 9. It took 18 hours to clear the facility. In the basement, they found a lab the size of an airplane hangar. There were cages of all sizes. Most were broken open and empty. Bodies were everywhere. Blood trails led to the vents. The largest cage held a strider nearly 40 feet tall. Then they realized this was a breeding facility, and something went very, very wrong. But what they found in the next room is what broke them. 2 medium-sized striders in a cage feeding on something. Jones' team moved closer. The air smelled sweet and tasted metallic. This cage wasn't broken. It was fully intact, with a chute for dropping in food. The striders were loud and violent as they tore through their meal. Then they saw small shoes, a tiny backpack. One of the men vomited. The striders were eating children. Documents scattered across the facility told a dark story. This was a joint operation between America, Chile, and China. They were breeding striders, trying to control them.
And see, that was another thing too. When I had looked up Antarctica, I said, what island is close to Antarctica? And sure enough, it is Chile. Now, the crazy thing is, Chile is supposed to be the unofficial capital of UFO activity. I didn't know that. But there's a lot of extra, and we'll go over that in the next live, but there's a lot of activity in Chile and relates to alien activity, supposedly. Ancient alien activity. And like I said, wouldn't you know, it's right next to Antarctica. And I said, what if there's something going on in between both the islands? Sure enough, it is.
Spliced genes to make the creatures more aggressive. They were also trying to make them more obedient.
Yeah, sounds like they got it half right.
These were apex predators millions of years ago, frozen in the ice until scientists woke them up. But it gets worse.
It always gets worse.
Behind the testing labs, a bullet train terminal. Tunnels stretched beneath the ocean floor to cities all over the world. Hong Kong, New York, Melbourne, London. The trains used magnetic levitation technology decades ahead of its time. Lab notes mentioned delivery schedules, regular shipments from major cities. The striders were being conditioned to hunt specific targets. The shipments were people, mostly children. This was the largest human trafficking operation in the world. After his father died, Anton found his old computer, an Apple IIe from McMurdo. The hard drives contained everything: DNA sequences, facility layouts, shipping manifests. All the evidence was there, but he needed help recovering the data.
Guys, if you aren't listening, we pretty much have found the real goal and reason for human trafficking.
Users warned him to leave the drives alone. Some gave advice on not how to recover the drives, on how to destroy them. Others just said, run. Anton never posted again. The Google Earth image that started it all has been scrubbed. The coordinates show only ice and snow. But beneath the surface, the network still operates. What was once confined to Antarctica now has access to every continent on Earth. Antarctica is Earth's true last frontier. No country owns it.
That's what the lizard people want you to think. They own everything below sea level.
In 1947, Admiral Richard E. Byrd led Operation High Jump, one of the largest Antarctic expeditions in history. They loaded up with enough firepower to start a war.
Operation High Jump, link down and you lose papoose.
The expedition ended early. Very early. During World War II, the Nazis launched Operation Neuschwabenland. Rumors spread about discoveries beneath the ice, underground caverns, ancient ruins, evidence of something that predates humanity. We know high-ranking German officials fled to South America after the war.
Link to Operation Eagle will fly down in your Kickstosa.
Kickstosa?
Yellow.
Most Nazis fled to Argentina. Others, according to theories, escaped to a hidden base beneath Antarctica. The US government took this theory seriously. In 1959, they locked down the entire continent. The Antarctic Treaty banned military presence, private exploration, unauthorized access. And it's true that some coordinates are censored. That's what allowed the Strider legend to start. Google does scrub images. I had to clean up Anton's posts to make them coherent. I tried not to add too much, but Anton typed like a typical 4chan user. All lowercase, no punctuation, random slurs for some reason. Anton's military patches and documents seem compelling, but those are easy to fake. But the underground bullet train network stretching across continents, that's impossible. Subs can't go that deep. No hollow tunnel could survive that pressure. I couldn't help but notice a lot of his story mirrors The Thing.
Very underrated movie. Kurt Russell in the 80s is gold.
I agree. I can't say for sure that Anton's story is...
Look what I found. Currently in Antarctica, there are 6 major high-speed rail lines that span the country. They connect to every single major community in the nation. Since the founding of Antarctica in 2018, high-speed rail has been pushed heavily in the Antarctic nation. The Blue Line was completed in 2036 after years of hard labor in the extreme climate of the Antarctic Peninsula. 5 major longer lines were added later, spanning from 2038 to 2099. When the Lime Line was added, each line is maintained by the federal government. So this is pretty much like hiding in plain sight, if you will, right? They're saying this is like future plans for what their railroad system will be. And as of 2127, there will be the lines that are connecting through all the cities. Now, of course, we'll be long gone by 2127, but and this is like the little concepts of it I found. Little AI concepts of it. Crazy though. Crazy, 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 crazy. It's almost like they do have plans to do it.
So, McMurdo Station has restricted areas. Military personnel conduct classified operations there. The no-go zones are real. The Ninian is another fun story. A massive humanoid creature with pale skin and human features lurking in Antarctic waters. But like most cryptid stories, the evidence doesn't hold up. The photos show exactly what you'd expect. Blurry white shapes in dark water, and most are icebergs. Some are photoshopped. Others are beluga whales, which have smooth white skin and round humanoid faces. But the Ninian is supposed to be 60 feet long. Beluga whales aren't that big, but sperm whales are.
Yes, big.
Stop it. They sometimes hunt vertically, floating upright. Maybe that's what they saw. There's no mention of the Ninian before the early 2000s, but there is Japanese folklore about creatures called ninyo, which means human fish. Again, I can't prove it's fake, but it's probably fake. Now, Organism 46B, the psychic shape-shifting cephalopod.
Tetradegapus.
That one is pure fiction. The story did drill into Lake Vostok, and it's true that an actual freshwater lake 2 miles under the ice that hasn't been exposed for about 20 million years is there. That's fertile ground for an urban legend to be born. So one was. These 3 stories don't hold up, but Antarctica's mysteries, those are real. UFO sightings, strange lights in the sky, unexplained crashes. Satellite images showed massive structures with entrances under the ice. Once the coordinates got out, the images were blurred. And if you want to see this for yourself...
Go watch Mysteries Beneath the Ice. An episode so nice, I linked it twice.
Antarctica is bigger than Europe and Australia. It's much bigger than the United States. Yet only a tiny fraction is open to the public. You can visit if you're from a signatory country and can get a permit. Good luck with that. Most of the continent is specially protected or specially managed. You need another permit for those areas. You won't get one. Antarctica is one of Earth's most restricted places. Maybe that's for a reason. We're told the rules are there to protect the environment, but until we can see for ourselves, we'll always wonder if they're protecting something else. I don't believe in these cryptids, but doing this show has made me believe other things. Crop circles are real, the moon is weird, and there's something under the ice at the bottom of the world. I don't know why, but I have a very strong feeling that whatever it is, we should probably leave it alone. Thank you so much for hanging out today. My name is AJ. There's Hecklefish.
Stay frosty, human.
That's right. Stay frosty. All right. So, again, I'm still here looking at these coordinates, trying to find some things. I know it's like 4:30 in the morning for a lot of you guys. 4:40 in the morning for a lot of you guys. It just says from the peninsula, but it won't show me. Damn it. I'm trying to find this one. This one in particular. I'm trying to find for you guys this one right here. And this one is hard to find. This is the one that was like the world was like, yo, what in the hell is that? And this it's in Antarctica. And through the massive hole where the ship was. Like I said, I'm trying to figure out the coordinates for that particular one. I know that one is a little bit harder to find. Let me see. Wait a minute. Wait. Okay, so someone got a very closer look at it. Yeah, this is in Antarctica, y'all. This is in Antarctica. I don't want to sign in. Okay. I can't go back no further. No, I won't look at that. I want to see if they have the coordinates here.
Quite incredible. Wow, David, that's while you're just speaking within a few seconds, is the Antarctica?
Oh, the tanks.
Of what looks to be like 4 tanks surrounding some kind of crashed UFO. You can kind of see the skid marks of this crash. Or I'm not exactly sure what's going on. It's an incredible
I don't know,
picture.
man. I took the pictures quick because as I was looking at you, Google is doing an update on their Google Earth, and they're recapturing some of the pictures in Antarctica. So I captured them quickly. And even if you went to Google Earth right now, you can catch the images, but when you go to zoom in super extra, the images disappear. They've already went and took the images to where you can zoom all the way in, but if you're zoomed out, you can see the images.
All right.